pretending to be us.
Right.
They're not the Jews.
Right.
That spirit is for us. Read.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68.
We're going to read right now one of the curses that happened only to the Jews. Now I want you to tell me, did this happen to black and Hispanics, or did this happen to the white folk over there in Palestine and Israel? Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
That Egypt is referring to bondage, slavery, because the land of Egypt and the land of Israel are on the same landmass. It's on the same exact landmass. The only time it changed was when you had it, 1869, the British, they built the Suez Canal. Those same British people set up Amalek, or the Jewish people, to take over our land. They did that from the beginning. They knew what the hell they were doing. They were trying to set us up. They were trying to give us the okie doke. They were trying to make it so nowadays when we hear the term Middle East, we think of some Arabian dude or some white guy, when that's not the case. When they say Christ is from the Middle East now, they say, let's look at this sign right here. Come over here real quick, Sean. This sign right here, you got, we're just gonna do a little bit of history. Where we at? Egypt, right? So over here you have Egypt. You have Egypt, you have Libya, you have Sudan, right? That's Northeast Africa.
Yeah.
Right next to it, you have the land of Israel. Right east of that is the land of Israel. In 1869, the British Parliament, they decided, you know what? We're gonna create the term, well, in 1850s, they said we're gonna create the term the Middle East. Why? Because if they say that Christ is from the Middle East, we're not gonna identify ourselves with the image of Christ. Because when I say somebody's Middle Eastern, what do you think of? What do you think of their nationality? Tell me.
No.
Do you think of a black man? Do you think of a Hispanic? No. You think of an Arabian. You think of a Palestinian. You think of people who don't look like us. The people who put us into captivity. That term is what the British created. Then later on they created the Suez Canal to divide the land of Israel, our land, with Africa. They figured, okay, well, since we got water in between it, now it's a whole new land. Doesn't make any damn sense. You got over here in North America, you're from Cuba, right? Well, your father's from Cuba. Cuba and Haiti, they're separated by water from the United States, but they're still considered the North American continent. Why is it different over here but not over there? It makes no sense. It's the confusion that they put in there. Then you fast forward, 1902, the British continue to make it something that they put out in Parliament. To now the other nations are saying the same thing. No, these people are Middle Eastern. If you're over here, you're Middle Eastern. They're not African. Because when we think African, what color people do we think? Dark skin. Like who? Like us. So they're trying to disconnect us and in the true image of Christ. They're trying to disconnect us from our true image.
Right.
That's exactly what they're doing. Read what you got. Keep going.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
So Moses said the same way that I say it's going to go down is exactly how it's going to go down when y'all go back into captivity. But he's not talking about actual Egypt, because at the time it was all one landmass. It wasn't until recently that the British wanted to disrupt it. So it was all one landmass. You could just walk over there. Read.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
So there, that same place of captivity, we're going to be sold unto our enemies. Now, it says Egypt, right? When you look at the back of a dollar bill, where's that sign? When you look at the back of a dollar bill.
I don't see it. The money came out.
Yeah, it did. When you look at the back of a dollar bill, right? What do you see? What are the two images that you see on the back of a dollar bill? Right, the pyramid. You see the pyramid with the all-seeing eye of Ra. You got it right there. Thank you, officer. You see that? You see the pyramid. Where do pyramids come from? Right, but they're in Egypt. So automatically, when we're reading Egypt right here, that's referring to a spiritual Egypt. Why? Because the same things that they did back in the day in actual Egypt, the same thing that the Americans do to us today. The same exact things. When we read Exodus 1 and 13, they made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, hard bondage, actual slavery. That's the reason why this city is built. It was built on the backs of our people, blacks and Hispanics. Keep reading.
For bond men and bond women.
We were gonna be there for bondmen, meaning slave men and slave women. Did this happen to the Jewish people in Palestine? Were they slaves? No, that didn't happen to them. Keep reading.
And no man shall buy you.
No one's gonna buy you. No one's gonna redeem us. No one. Think about it. We've had a whole bunch of people try to redeem us. We've had, for many of the Caribbean, you had Toussaint Louverture. He was one of them for the Haitians. You had Marcus Garvey, right, for the Jamaicans. You had Martin Luther King over here. You had, who else did you have? You had Malcolm X over here. All trying to liberate our people. We even thought Obama was gonna help liberate us. But we're still in the same captivity.
Right.
Keep reading. Read it again.
Verse 68. And the Lord shall bring.
Before you go.
Because you said you know you're an Israelite, right? So I'm gonna read a law. The same law that I was going over with Octavia. Go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. Deuteronomy 10 and 12 first. Deuteronomy 10 and 12 first. Because if you know you're an Israelite, you know that you're supposed to, that you're God's chosen people, you gotta do better, right? You cannot act the same way as you did in the years past when you thought you were black or Cuban. You can't. Because now we know we're actually somebody. Read.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10, verse 12. And now Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee?
So he's speaking specifically to you, Tashawn, and to you, Octavia. What does God require of you? Now that you know you're an Israelite from the tribe of Manasseh, from the tribe of Judah. Read.
But to fear the Lord thy God.
You have to fear God. What do you think it means to fear God, Tashawn?
You already know who he is. You gotta be abundant. You gotta know. I respect where you come from.
Right. Respect what he wants from you. So if he tells you to do something, we have to do what?
You gotta do it.
We gotta do it. It's that simple. You agree with that, Octavia? All right, keep reading.
To walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good.
So if we read a law from the Bible, right? If we read a law from the Bible, it's gonna be for our good. Meaning we have to obey it, even if, like you said earlier, you may not fully understand why, right? We still have to obey it, correct, Deshaun?
Yep.
We're gonna read a law real quick, the same one we were dealing with before, Octavia. 1 Corinthians 11 and 3.
Read that.
This is the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
So, Deshaun, who is your head? What's that? Read that again.
But I will have you know that every head of every man is Christ.
Who's your head? Christ is your head, right? For every man, Christ is our head. Read.
And the head of the woman is the man.
Octavia, who would be your head?
Don't have that.
Who would be your head from what we just read? Read that again.
I don't have a man.
Listen, you went over it earlier.
I don't have.
And the head of the woman is the man.
Sis, I know you're just coming up right now. What's your name?
Erica.
Erica. Okay, Erica, come up real quick. Real quick. Tashawn, you can't go just yet. We didn't bring up the law yet. We didn't bring up the law yet. Read that again from the top.
1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3.
We're bringing out a law real quick on the order of things, right?
But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
So Tashawn already knows. Who's your head? Christ would be his head. He's a man. Read.
And the head of the woman is the man.
Now, Erica, from what we just read, it said the head of the woman is the man. Who would be your head? A man. See how some of that was, Octavia? It didn't say, it didn't necessarily say husband, did it? It just said the man. That's it. The man. That's it. Man is the head. Remember, Eve came from who? Who did Eve come from? Who did Eve come from?
Well, when he sent me
Right,
one,
from a man. It's the same concept.
I'm out here by myself. I got a covering. I got nothing.
That's not how it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's not how it's supposed to be at all. See, that's one of the problems that we have within our community. Especially black and Hispanic women, a lot of them end up being independent. But they think they don't need a head. They think they don't need anybody. How you doing, bro?
I don't think that.
Let me ask you real quick.
I really don't think
We're all going over the same thing. What's your name, sir?
Outlaw.
Say it again.
Outlaw.
Outlaw.
Yeah.
All right, outlaw. Who would be your head? Do you know?
Who is my head?
Your head. Your lead.
Myself.
Let's go.
Real quick.
1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3.
Run through it.
But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ,
For us men, our head is Christ. Read.
and the head of the woman is the man,
For the women, their head is the man. Read.
and the head of Christ is God.
Wow. Christ's head is God. So it's God, Christ, man, woman.
Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered.
So if any man is praying or prophesying or hearing the words of God coming out with his head covered, read,
Dishonor his head.
brings shame to his head, which is who? Which is Christ. So as a man, outlaw, as a man, Tashawn, if you're hearing the Bible coming out right now and you have your head covered because you're wearing a hat, because you're wearing a do-rag, something of that sort, you'd be dishonoring who? You'd be dishonoring Christ. So then what should you do as men? Say it again?
Uncover your head.
That's exactly what you would have to do. You'd have to uncover your head. That would be keeping the law, like we read earlier. Since you know you're an Israelite now, you're obligated to keep the law.
Right.
Because it's for your good, even if you don't fully understand why. So as men, what should you be doing right now?
Head should be uncovered.
So why do you still have your head covered?
Well, because I'm just stepping up. So right now, I'm not taking everything literal. Because I hadn't did.
Let's read it again.
Let me finish. I hadn't did my research yet. So, just because a man says so, I got to do research as well. So, not saying that you're incorrect.
Acts 5 and 29.
Excuse me.
Acts 5 and 29.
What day do y'all work?
Hold that for Acts 5 29.
Saturday.
Because it's going back to the same thing with you again, Tashawn. Remember, this is all for your good. Read that.
Okay. It's the book of Acts, chapter 5, verse 29. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man.
That's it. We have to obey God as opposed to man. So regardless of what man says, we read it straight from the Bible that God said, as a man, your head is Christ, and you need to have your head uncovered when you're hearing the prophecy coming out of the Bible.
Right.
Because if not, you're showing dishonor to your head, which is Christ, the black Messiah.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? Let's keep reading.
Verse 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonor his head. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonor her head.
So Octavia, it's the reverse for you. If you have your head uncovered while the Bible's coming out, while you're reading, while you're praying, you are dishonoring your head, which would be the man. Why? Because God said in his order is God, Christ, man with his head uncovered, woman with her head covered. Let's read why.
Keep going.
For that is even all one as if she were shaven.
Right.
It's as though she'd be shaven, meaning she was completely bald. Is it a good thing for a woman to be bald? Do we ever look at a woman and none of us want a bald woman? Let's just keep it plain. You don't want a bald woman, right? It'd be an embarrassment. It's a shame. It's the same concept as having a woman with her head uncovered while she's trying to pray or listen to the Bible. Why? Because at that point she's acting like a man, and you have men having their head covered listening to the Bible in the role of a woman.
What is a nation? Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is you. It's nation time.
And finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, his word